5 years ago, my good friend got his driver's license. After getting his license, he suggested that we go on a trip together. So the two of us decided to take a road trip to Shiga Prefecture. Because it was a road trip, we oft unrested in the car, though we encountered something terrifying along the way. The story goes like this. That day we arrived in Nagahama City, Shiga Prefecture. Nagahama is a city in the northern part of Shiga Prefecture. Its west side borders Lake Biwa, and the east side is the Ibuki Mountains. The most famous place in Nagahama is Kaikubu Island, one of the 8 views of Lake Biwa, which is full of various legends. By the time we arrived in Nagahama that day, it was already late at night. Because both of us were really tired, we parked in a parking lot around Nagahama Castle to rest. At that time, there wasn't a single car on the road, let alone in the parking lot. It was completely empty with only our car. After my friend parked the car in the middle of the pitch-black parking lot, he fell asleep right away. Meanwhile, I sat in the passenger seat, typing up documents on my laptop. Everything was normal at first, but I don't know since when, I started to feel something weird. I noticed out of the corner of my eye that there seemed to be something outside the window. Although I felt a sense of unease, I didn't look up to check, but just stayed focused on the laptop screen. About 20 minutes later, I finally finished typing the documents. Just as I was about to go to sleep, I caught a glimpse of something black out of the corner of my eye. That thing outside the window seemed to still be there. I was a little nervous, then slowly shifted my gaze over. As soon as I turned my head to look, I was startled. It was a guy with long hair. His face was right outside the passenger window, exposing only his right eye, silently peering into the car and making eye contact with me. After making eye contact with him, unpleasant sweat rolled down my head, my whole body broke out in goosebumps, and my facial muscles twitched slightly. I just locked eyes with him like that for 5 seconds, too terrified to move. When I finally reacted, I quickly patted my friend to wake him up. My friend opened his eyes, looked at my side, and immediately jumped up in fright. We were both very scared, unsure if the other party was a ghost or a human. After freezing for a few seconds, "Shh," my friend said to that thing in a trembling voice, "What are you looking at? Get out of here." That long manus-haired guy seemed to hear my friend's voice. He let out a bizarre loud laugh, stood up straight, and then turned around to run quickly toward the bushes at the end of the parking lot. We watched that person laugh while running, and then he ran into the bushes and disappeared from our sight. My friend complained, "Where did that psycho come from?" Scared me to death. Afterwards, because we were a bit scared and didn't dare to continue staying in that place, we left that parking lot and switched to another one to rest. Although the guy was probably just a weird person, when I think about how during those 20 minutes I was using the computer, he stood so close, silently watching me in that manner for such a long time, it makes me feel sick and uneasy, and giving me goosebumps and creeps all over. This is a terrifying story I experienced on my way back from driving to a friend's house to hang out in the past. That day, I originally planned to just meet up with a friend I hadn't seen in a long time, grab a bite to eat, and then head back. But unexpectedly, I stayed at my friend's house for a long time. Although tomorrow was Sunday, I had an important meeting report at the company on Monday, and I had to go back to organize my materials, so I didn't plan to stay over at my friend's place. It was already late at night when I drove home. Taking regular roads from my friend's house to mine takes about 2 hours. It was a mountain road with very few traffic lights, and not many cars passed by at night, making it feel very desolate. After driving for a while, I started to feel sleepy, so I turned on the music and chewed gum, but nothing could eliminate my drowsiness. Therefore, I thought about finding a place to take a short nap. Just as I thought this, a seemingly newly opened convenience store appeared before my eyes. There was not a single car in the parking lot of that convenience store, and there were no houses or other spots around. I parked the car back in towards the convenience store, then went inside to buy a rice ball and coffee. After returning to the car, I placed the items on the passenger seat, thinking I would sleep for a bit first. The weather that day was quite cool, so I opened the window a little, reclined the seat, and soon after lying down, I groggily fell asleep. I don't know how long passed, but suddenly I felt like I was in a half-to-leap and half-leap and half-asleep state. I am not sure if what happened next was a dream or reality. I heard a sound coming from outside the car, like someone walking and stepping on crushed stones. I squinted through the crack in the window. It would have been better not to look, because when I did, I was startled. There was a black human silhouette peering at me in the car through the crack in the window, and besides its shape and eyes, I couldn't see its other facial features or clothing clearly at all. It was a humanoid shadow so dark that it would swallow all the light, accompanied by a pair of large eyes, silently staring at me. Looking at its eyes, I felt a surge of disgust and fear. I had heard people say that when you encounter this, it's best to pretend you didn't see it. Therefore, I pretended to be calm and didn't see it, slowly rolling over to face away from the window on the driver's side. After rolling over, I heard that black shadow move from the driver's side towards the rear of my car, and then I saw it walk around to stand motionless outside the rear passenger window. Suddenly, it quickly bent down and peered at me through the rear window. For a split second, I locked eyes with that thing, and I was genuinely about to be scared to death. Because I felt uneasy, my breathing became rapid, my heart beat faster, and I felt my whole body turning cold and my palms sweating constantly. I quickly closed my eyes and cursed repeatedly in my head, begging him not to scare me. Even though my eyes were closed, I could sense that the dark shadow seemed to hear my inner thoughts. He smiled, seemingly satisfied with my reaction. Then I heard someone pounding hard on the car window, followed by a low voice yelling in my ear to open the door. I was so terrified that I screamed and jumped up. When I woke up, I found myself drenched in sweat, even though I clearly felt myself jump up. When I opened my eyes, I was actually lying down facing the roof of the car. I quickly sat up, started the engine, and frantically fled the scene. Driving on the desolate mountain road after leaving that place, I kept feeling like the dark shadow was chasing me from behind, so I constantly checked the rearview mirror. I remained tense the entire way and only calmed down slightly when I finally reached a road with more traffic. Just as I stopped at a red light and reached for my coffee to take a sip, I realized there was absolutely nothing on the passenger seat. The coffee and rice bowl I had just bought were gone. I couldn't understand what was going on. After returning home, I was still traumatized by what had happened, but I was also very confused as to why the things I bought had vanished. So I checked the route I had just driven on my computer and discovered that there were no convenience stores along the way at all. I thought maybe it was a newly opened store that wasn't marked on the map yet. Sometime later, I was chatting with a friend and brought this up. My friend told me he often drives that route and there are definitely no convenience stores along the way. However, there is an abandoned business with a parking lot on that road. After hearing what my friend said and recalling the events of that day, I was terrified. I had no idea where I had actually pulled over to take a nap. Was it at that abandoned business? And what on earth was that dark shadow I encountered in the parking lot? This reminds me of another terrifying experience I had with a friend in the past. Here is how the story goes. One day after work, it was around 11 o'clock p.m. Since I wasn't sleepy at all, my friend Koki and I decided to go to a nearby hill to look at the night view. Koki and I drove to a convenience store at the foot of the hill. We bought some snacks and ate them in the car while chatting. Shortly after we arrived at the parking lot on the hill and parked the car, Koki suddenly said, "Did you see that?" I asked him what he saw. He said there seemed to be a child in the corner of the parking lot, pointing to a spot not far from the public restrooms. I looked in that direction. It was quite far from the streetlight and very dim. In the faint residual glow of the streetlight, I could barely make out a short shadow standing there. I thought to myself, Koki has incredible eyesight to spot a child in such dim lighting. However, it was almost midnight. Wasn't it a bit strange for a child to be out here alone? Just as I was thinking this, Koki got out of the car and ran towards that direction. Seeing him get out, I hurriedly chased after him. By the time I caught up, Koki was already standing in front of the boy, talking to him. He asked the little boy, "What's wrong? Why are you here alone? Where is your mom?" The boy stood completely motionless and replied, "Mom isn't here." Hearing the child speak from behind Koki, I instantly broke out in Gusenst. I immediately sensed that this guy was dangerous and we needed to leave right away. So I grabbed Koki and forcefully shoved him back into the car. Once inside, Koki said, "What are you doing? It's so cruel to leave a child alone in a place like this." I told him to shut up, immediately started the car, and peeled out of the parking lot, speeding down the hill. Once we reached the bottom, we went back to the first convenience store we had stopped at. I parked the car, and we both got out to buy coffee and talk about what had just happened. Koki complained to me, "What was your problem up on the mountain?" I replied, "Tuition told me there was something wrong with that person." He looked confused and asked what I meant. I told him, I think that guy's voice was clearly someone pretending to be a child, and it felt very dangerous. Even though I told Koki this, he thought I was just being overly sensitive and overthinking things. After that, we didn't dwell on it too much. We chatted in front of the convenience store for a while and then went home. A few weeks after this incident, Koki suddenly sent me a message saying, "I'm scared to death." Then he forwarded me a news link. The news article stated that the police had arrested 5 suspects for committing crimes including rape, murder, and robbery. The police had found the victim's body dumped deep in the bushes next to the parking lot on the hill we had visited that night. Furthermore, among the 5 suspects, one was an adult male with dwarfism. After reading the news, I was completely in shock. It turned out my intuition was right. That guy was an adult, not a child. And most importantly, what I saw that night wasn't an illusion. Actually, I hadn't told Koki that night that I had also noticed something else. Behind that short man, in the bushes not too far away, I saw several figures crouching and shifting around, as if they were staring at us, and above the rustling bushes, there was a woman's head floating in the air, drifting back and forth. I also noticed that the short man, both hands were kept behind his back the entire time. I don't know what he was hiding in his hands at that moment. That day, if I hadn't quickly grabbed Mitsuki and ran away, what would have happened to us? Just thinking about it scares me and makes me break out in a cold sweat. Everyone thinks that ghosts and terrifying legends only exist in old places, but the incident I'm going to talk about happened at my workplace. I used to work at a company in Tokyo, mainly providing various services to investors from overseas. Since our clients were spread all over the world, the company operated around the clock. The company ran on 3 shifts, and the night shift ended at 2 o'clock. The office wasn't actually in a busy downtown area but in the suburbs of Tokyo, so it wasn't as crowded as the city center. To prevent employees from being stranded without a ride home late at night, the company I worked for partnered with a taxi company. As long as you went to the parking lot, there would be taxis available to take. One day, I was working the night shift at the company and worked past the scheduled quitting time. It was almost 2:30 a.m. when I got off work. I planned to go to the parking lot to catch a taxi back. As soon as I walked out of the office building, a gust of cold wind blew against my face, giving me a chilling feeling of desolation. It was completely dark outside, and there was no one around. I walked toward the parking lot alone. I reached the parking lot, and there wasn't a single car there. I was just standing there all by myself. All the taxis for that day were gone. I felt frustrated and exhausted. Just as I was considering what to do next, I heard the sound of high heels approaching me from a distance. I saw a young woman dressed very fashionably walking toward me from afar. She came up to me and asked what time it was and if she had missed the last taxi. I told her the time and then said that I had indeed missed the last taxi. Then I asked her if she was in the same situation. She didn't answer my question, just smiled, and then shook my hand. The moment I touched her hand, I felt an icy coldness. She said it was nice to meet me and then walked briskly deep into the parking lot. After she left, I felt something was a bit strange, like something wasn't quite right. Never mind that the woman's hand was so cold. Hanging around the parking lot at that hour was highly unusual. Moreover, the woman's eerie smile and calm demeanor made me feel a bit uneasy. However, because I was already very tired at the time, I didn't pay too much attention to it and walked back inside the building. After going back inside, I asked the security supervisor in charge of transportation on the first floor if he could have the dispatch company arrange a car to take me home. He quickly made contact and told me a car would arrive in 15 minutes, having me wait in the lobby in the meantime. While waiting, I casually chatted with him. I told him that I had just run into a woman who had probably also missed the time to catch a ride, and that she had walked deep into the parking lot, suggesting we see if we could call a car for her too. He froze for a moment after hearing my words, and then hurriedly said that during this entire time, he hadn't seen anyone else besides me. I frowned, finding it strange. Where did that woman go? Later, the taxi arrived. On the ride home, I asked the driver about it and told him what had just happened. The driver smiled and said, "You ran into her too? Actually, the lady you met wasn't a human, but a female ghost who frequently appears in the parking lot." He said that many drivers from their company had unknowingly encountered that female ghost in the parking lot around 2:00. The appearance of the woman the driver described to me was exactly the same as the one I saw, but the driver said the woman I met still looked normal, so I shouldn't be afraid, because what the drivers from their company saw was the terrifying side of that woman. Whenever they encountered her, the woman would be standing right up close outside the window next to the driver's seat. When you noticed her and turned your head to look, her neck would suddenly snap and hang down by the window, staring right at you. According to the drivers who had seen her, the woman's eyes were black holes. Then the driver went on to tell me about an incident. Actually, a long time ago, a woman was sexually assaulted and strangled to death deep in the parking lot. The woman struggled and resisted desperately while being choked. The perpetrator used all his strength to strangle the woman's neck, eventually even snapping her neck completely, although the driver couldn't be certain that the ghost was that woman. Perhaps it was her soul. At that time, after hearing what the driver said, the woman's eerie smile and cold hand kept popping into my head. Even though I hadn't paid much attention to it earlier, I was still terrified. And so, I was in a state of deep unease for the entire ride home. After that experience, I never dared to go to the parking lot alone again. Although I was very scared, I also felt very sympathetic toward that poor woman. She suffered such a cruel fate and never left that place even after death. This next incident happened when I was a child. I remember when I was in elementary school. It was raining heavily one day. After school, my father drove over to pick me up. On the way home, my father decided to stop by the supermarket to buy some things to take back. My father parked the car in the supermarket parking lot. There weren't many people at the supermarket at the time, and there were only a few cars in the parking lot. Because it was raining outside, I really couldn't be bothered to get out of the car, so I decided to wait inside. Therefore, my father didn't turn off the engine and let me stay in the car alone. After my father got out, I locked the car doors and planned to take a short nap in the back seat. Perhaps because I was exhausted from playing at school, I quickly drifted off into a groggy sleep. Halfway through my sleep, I heard a clicking sound. With my eyes closed, I wondered if my father had already finished his shopping. I thought it couldn't be that fast, and I might have misheard, so I ignored it and continued to sleep with my eyes closed. But just as I was about to fall back into a dream, I heard the clicking sound again. At this point, I remembered I had locked the doors. It must be my father returning from shopping and unable to open the car door, so I opened my eyes a bit impatiently, intending to open the door for him. I sat up, and just as I was about to open the driver's side door, I instinctively looked out the window and was startled. Outside the driver's side window were two strangers. A man and a woman stood outside the car, staring solemnly at my face. I wondered who they were and what they wanted. Just as fear set in and my body froze, the man kept trying to open the car door while staring at me, causing the door handle to click continuously. I didn't know what he was trying to do. Terrified, I jumped into the driver's seat and honked the horn a few times, trying to attract the attention of people nearby. The loud honking echoed through the parking lot. Upon hearing the horn, the two people quickly ran away towards the nearby shrine. Later, when my father came out, I told him what had just happened. Upon learning this, my father took me to the police station to file a report. At the police station, what left a deep impression on me was the densely packed missing person notices on the bulletin board. Inside the station, the police officer told us that disappearances had been happening frequently lately and warned us to pay attention to our safety. He also told my father never to leave children alone at home or in the car again. Later, as I grew up and became more aware, I realized that back in the era when I was a child, in the area where I lived, it wasn't just children who were going missing. There was also a high concentration of adult disappearances, and those missing people almost all vanished without a trace. Everyone believed they were abducted by foreign agents and taken overseas. If abducted abroad, it basically meant they would never return for the rest of their lives. To this day, when I recall these events, I still clearly remember the faces of those two people. If those two were trying to abduct me, and I hadn't locked the car doors at that time, I don't know where I would be now, or what kind of life I would be living.